In today's video, I want to show you how you can actually play musically over complicated tunes or tunes with many chords that will usually be challenging by actually just sticking with effective motifs and rhythmic ideas that will naturally bring out effective melodies by simply using those rhythmic ideas and motifs and just exploring the simple chords, chord inversions, or scale notes and nothing else, nothing too complicated. I'm not going to even talk too much about chromatic approach or chord tensions or things like that on this video because I want to show you the power of simplicity. And for today's video, I chose All the Things You Are. A beautiful, fantastic tune that's actually based on a very typical chord progression, the circle of fifth, right? Many tunes like Fly Me to the Moon and many others are based on this beautiful little chord progression, especially at the beginning. And it's a very important one to master. In fact, All the Things You Are is such a great tune that you should include in your practice because it contains a lot of different 2-5-1s, and it's just a great tune to be musical over it because it already contains a lot of dominance going to, going down fifth, resolving to major chords, to minor chords. This is a great tune to practice. If you can master All the Things You Are in like 3 different keys, you'll improve a lot. It's one of those tunes that it's just packed with many beautiful things that you can do to boost your improvisation skills. So I'm just simply going to show you how you can grab a simple rhythmic element and try to actually figure out, take the first 2 measures, for example, the first 2 measures, and try to figure out a nice musical shape. And then what you're going to do is try to translate that shape on the other chords. Right? So I'm going to grab a very basic 2-measure phrase. I'm going to play it. I'm going to figure it out first on the first 2 measures, which is for the tenor, it's going to be G minor 7, then going to a C minor 7, right? I want to figure out something nice there. And then this is such a great chord progression because since it basically repeats, right? You have a circle of fifths. A lot of the things you play, you can easily sequence and replicate, right? Now, when you replicate them, you can either do exactly the same notes and the same relationships, right? So if I start in root position, I'll do the same thing for the next 2 chords, right? Or you can simply grab the main rhythmic idea and try to replicate it and change the shape. So I'm going to do 2 versions. I'm going to do one where I'm going to come up with a very simple idea and I'm going to try to replicate it as close as possible to the original. Now, don't go too crazy about thinking, I have to play exactly that same phrase in the same shape over every chord because it's going to take you too long. But try to, for instance, if I pick something that starts in root position, I'm going to just keep it the same way to train my ear to actually identify the sound of that motif, right? Almost like if it were its own melody over the entire chord progression, okay? So let's grab the first 2 chords and I'm going to come up with something quick here, a little idea. How about this? Right, for that G minor 7 going to the C minor 7. Very simple. Root position, boo ba boo ba, landing on the 3rd of the C minor chord. Boo da do. That's it. Right. So again. Cool. Now I'm gonna replicate that on the next 2 chords, or in the following 2 chords, right? Which is now it's gonna be F7 going to a B flat major 7. Here for the tenor. Cool, and that's pretty easy because I picked root position. It's just an easy idea to assimilate, so it becomes fairly easy to put it on the other chords. And now you can either write this down. For what I'm doing right now, I'm not writing it down. I'm trying to keep ideas as simple as I can. So if you're not very familiar with chords, then pick an even simpler phrase. Try to pick just maybe 2 or 3 notes, right? I'm comfortable with chords, but I'm still picking something basic like root position, right? Based on that. Now I continue the next 2 chords, right? That E flat major 7 going to that A7, so I gotta do that change there, and there we go. And then finally landing on that D major 7. Now for that D major 7, I can, maybe pick first inversion or start on the 3rd so I don't go too low on the horn. Sounds a little more musical. How about... Right? So this is a good moment of exploration. Try to explore it if you're going to change a few things. Oh, I'll try first inversion here or that. Try to stick as close as possible to the original one. Now, so my entire A section now sounds like this. Pretty cool, very musical. It almost sounds like a little melody, right? Very repetitive, but that's the point here. Don't be scared of repetition because it's what trains your ear and fingers to be able to repeat the same phrase in the same rhythm. I do this a lot with students where I ask them to repeat the same rhythm over like 8 measures. And what happens is they try, but then by the third time, they just can't repeat it the exact same way. And that's what I want you to train. That's the purpose here. It's like try to actually train, respect the rhythm. Don't just go like da 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 do ba boo da ba chicka bo ba. Later on, once you can do that properly, then you can step away from the rhythm and add things and change it up. But don't do that if you can't stick with one rhythm, right? It's if I tell you, hey, try to speak this exact words in this way and repeat them, and you should be able to do it. Even if, whatever, changing chords in this case. But if you can't, then don't add anything new and don't change it. So we're starting basic. You want to be able to replicate something for, all the chords, or at least the A section, replicate a rhythm. So if you have to sing it before. I talk a lot about that as well. Once you do that, only then, okay, you can go back, and now you're going to see on that next version, I'm going to record both versions. So the first one's going to be very basic, like sticking with that rhythm all over the place, and mainly that initial phrase. And then the second version, I'm going to change it up. I'm going to try to keep that same rhythm, but now I'm going to change the shapes and even change rhythms and add more things, right? But for this first version, I just want to make that really clear. Try to really respect that rhythm. And now the more I do it, now I start really digging that rhythm and playing it even better. So then you do that, you go over the whole tune. I'm actually going to do a version right now where I'm going to basically record or a play along track, and I'm going to record a whole tune based on this. I'm going to stick it as close as possible to this original phrase. Okay, I might do mainly root position, but here and there I might start with the third and do different shapes, right? So let me just do this. I'm going to do it a cappella first. So you can kind of get to hear the harmony and how, by just using that motive, how you can totally hear the harmony of the whole song and how musical that already is. It is repetitive, but keep in mind I'm going to change it on the next step. But right now I'm just going to stay as close as possible to that motive, okay? And try to play over the chord progression. So. Very basic. I try to keep it as basic as possible, but you hear that's a whole tune now, and it's great because instead of overcomplicated with crazy licks, the fact that I can grab a motif and try to play it over the whole tune just made me actually play and sound musical over the whole tune. So this is more important than you trying to play so many licks and phrases and sound uneven and all over the place, which is like the noodling. We're trying to avoid the noodling. So this is a great practice. You can do this for an entire practice session. Then again, I talk a lot about don't overcomplicate your practice. You can do different things every day. You don't have to do the same 10 things every single day. You can pick one. It's like today, I'm going to do this. And right now I'm practicing as I play this video, right? Kind of spontaneous. I'm trying to do this and play that specific motif. So I'm going to record and play this first version. I'm going to keep it very simple. I might change a few things. So remember, this is still sort of improvised, but I'm respecting, trying to mainly go around root positions and basic chords and scales. Nothing too complicated. And then later I'll do another recording of just one chorus where I'm going to change things up, respecting and still based on that initial motive. Let's go. sounds very musical, not very repetitive, but it's really good ear training. You try to repeat the same phrase. It's almost like trying to say the same thing in different contexts, you know, and accommodating to the context, but you're pretty much saying a very similar thing. It's really that concept, and it's really important to train it. I have to emphasize it because when I work on this with my students and my coaching students, they start okay, but then they always deviate from the rhythm, but not on purpose. That's a problem. A lot of times they step away from the rhythm because they lost it or they kind of forgot it. So it's really important that you can replicate that rhythm like your life depends on it, just so that you can really train to remember it. In fact, later on, ideally, you know, you would hear things like play that rhythm on the first two measures and then play something else, and then to be able to actually come back to that initial rhythm later on, like Sonny Rollins used to do on his solos. Motivic development is really important. And then later on, yes, you can deconstruct, destroy, change, accommodate, and do all sorts of things. But it all starts with being able to really replicate one rhythm, right? So what I'm gonna do now in this next step, I'm gonna use that rhythm, but you're gonna hear me change things up. I'm not gonna just do the exact same shape. I'm gonna change the shapes and go up. And so you might hear me do things now like this. It's the same rhythm, but now I'm changing the shapes, and I talk a lot about shapes and how important they are, right? My hierarchy, again, of a good phrase is rhythm first, shape second, and the notes are a consequence of that. I'm not obsessing over the notes at all with what I'm playing. I might think like, oh, I'm going to add attention here, but I'm really getting that rhythm, locking in with that rhythm. Then the good thing is when you have a good rhythmic language, you know it is a lot harder to not sound musical, because if you stick with the rhythm, it's going to sound musical, right? Then shapes. I'm always thinking on shapes. Okay, I did ascending now. Do do ba do da boo da ba 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 boo ba boo 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 ba boo ba. Right? Like you can't just do like on the previous version. I was sticking with like this ascending motion just to get the feel of that sound of that phrase over the chord progression. But now I'm going to kind of change it up and really go very simple with chord tones, a few scale tones. I'm not going to add all this crazy licks. I'm going to keep it. In fact, the rhythm is going to help me. You know, if you just mix rhythms and a few of the scale tones and basic chord tones or chord inversions, you can sound amazing, right? You can even have like my concept of the matrix of inversions. You can literally just write the first 4 measures or 8 measures and write all the inversions of each chord and just randomly look at them and play the rhythm, right? And just have the visual aspect of the chords if you don't want to think about the chords, right? Ideally, and you can do that. But if you can get to a level, you can do this with songs that you know the chords fairly well, but train rhythm. Even if you step away from the harmony, like you play some weird notes that didn't fit the chord, if you stick with a good rhythm, they will still sound good, which is the amazing thing that people don't understand. When you're noodling and playing all over the place, then you play wrong notes on top of that. It sounds terrible. But if you're really accurate with your rhythm and you throw a few weird notes here and there, they actually will sound intentional and good, right? So anyway, I'm going to go with the second version. I'm going to use that same motif. I'm going to start with that rhythm, and I'm going to mainly play that rhythm. Then you're going to hear me step away from it, maybe a little bit here and there to resolve chords in different ways, but I'm going to stick with it, and I'm going to drastically change the shapes now. That's what's going to make my solo very musical. So remember, from rhythm now to shapes, right? This is, and if you talk about the concept of motif or a musical melodic motif, motif can be both. Can be the actual same rhythm with the same shape, or in this case, what I'm going to do, the same rhythm or even similar or very close rhythm with a completely different shape, right? It's like bo 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 ba 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 bo ba. It's the same sort of rhythmic motif, but in a completely different shape, which produces a different melody and a different sensation. So let's go. I'm going to go with that version. and pretty musical. Like, it actually grounds me on musicality, which is what I love about rhythm, right? Because before, believe it or not, I used to be the kind of student that would just run licks all over the place. And my solos were just like, I would get exhausted from them. I would be able to sound fluent, but I would get tired of my solos because it would just sound like... Yeah, it could sound good for a little bit, but then it's like, oh man, just play like a meaningful statement, right? And that's how I felt. So it's like with rhythm, it just locks me in, like, and then you can add all this like crazier phrases later on around it, but the rhythm's gonna lock you in that musicality. It's gonna make everything else you play, all the crazy stuff, sound better. But if you just play crazy stuff and try to play licks all over the place and that's it, then it's not gonna sound good. But if you ground yourself in rhythm first, especially at the beginning of your solo, when you're trying to, create some statements, some first impression statements, right? So... see that, just did a little a cappella chorus based on that rhythm, but then stepped away and played a few licks and then come back to the rhythm and step away. So you can use one rhythm as your little anchor, right? And then another one. It's just a great practice so that you can infuse your playing with musicality. Of course, later on when you actually play a solo live, you're not thinking of anything. You're trying to... Sometimes I do practice sessions where the only thing I try to do is infuse my playing with musicality so that later on when I'm actually playing live, I don't have to think about it. I want all of this stuff to come naturally. Before, when I started, the licks came out naturally, but they didn't sound musical. So like, well, I want rhythms to be natural now for me. So it's like, that is really the way that you can practice musicality and make musicality a natural thing, is by practicing rhythms to do ba boop ba ba you ba ba da ba boop ba da ba da boop ba boop ba bu da da ba do ba da ba da ba da ba da ba do ba da ba do ba da ba 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 bu da ba ba bu bu ba ba ya bu da ba bu 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 ba ba da ba 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 do ba. Right, even just the singing like that. You saw when you could hear when I was singing the rhythm statement, and then just the lush of eighth notes would replicate like that lick or like a longer phrase. But to do that, I also talk a lot about that, how important it is to really be able to put the play along and actually sing a rhythmic solo, like I did right now, with no notes. Can you actually sound musical and with your singing be able to repeat certain rhythms, right? Is really important. Try to do that because it's really how you can practice musicality. All right, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please, if you like this, subscribe and turn on notifications. I post a video like this every Tuesday, and leave in the comments what would you like to see next. And I left a link for a free training that I have where I actually show you how you can infuse your playing with rhythm and drastically boost your improv skills. So I left a link below on the description. There's a link to my free training and also a link to my Improv Mastery Circle, which is my exclusive improvisation community where I help students all over the world drastically boost your saxophone and improvisation skills. And you can go ahead and join that as well if you really want to take your playing to the next level and you don't want to do this alone. Then I totally encourage you to join my community. But make sure to at least watch that free training at the very least, because it's really going to help you and it's just 10 minutes. So hope you enjoyed and see you on the next video.